Um, I would like to ask a question that involves the audience. If you could enter in the chat box how you found the last job you got. Um, was it through emailing or applying or cold calling, going to um, the job site or the location and applying in person or talking to someone? Did you network? Did someone suggest it? Or CareerForce help you out? I see a lot of Indeed and a lot of um, surprising number of cold calls. All right, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Um, for the most part, the majority of people find work through networking. Um, I myself have have done that. But when we talk about the different ways you can find work, one of the most important, the one that we want to recommend here, is free for you and for job seekers. It's going to be minnesotaworks.net. That's Minnesota fully spelled out, not the abbreviation, minnesotaworks.net. That's run by the state, and it's a place you can post up to 5 resumes and look for work. All right. When we say networking, we're not talking about um, spending time in a group with the specific expectation of networking. That is one way to network, but it's by no means the only way. When we say networking, we're basically talking about any opportunity that you have to interact with other people, to make a connection, to um, to create a bond, to do something where you now have a reason to talk to that person again, or they have a reason to talk to you. And that can happen at the grocery store, at a webinar, that can happen anywhere where you're interacting with people, as well as those groups that are intended as networking. Um, when we talk about finding work, and it's really important during the current situation in the world, um, you really need to focus on what you're trying to do. You can't get wrapped up in so many different things or pursuing so many different angles and adjusting for every little thing. You really want to decide what job you're looking for, what job title, and target it, and then target it at a particular company and look at what that company expects. Um, Ideally, you're looking for the same job title that you've done in the past. You've got experience doing it. It will make the job search easier. But if you've done that job for a while, for a number of years, maybe it's time to move up to a more senior position. You can have multiple resumes, so you can look for multiple levels at the same time. When we talk about job um, job duties, the things that we've done, the skills that we have, uh, it often goes far beyond just the specific job title that we had. Um, if you work on a production line, you participate in the production of a product, but you might be trained in on multiple positions in that product production in case someone's out sick. Well, sometimes people are out sick and you didn't get the training and you had to step up or step into a role. In an office, the same thing happens, often with less formal decision making and guidance. They ask you to do something that you may have never done, something with Excel, something with PowerPoint. You need to look at all the things that you've done and contributed in your jobs to really determine what jobs you could be applying for. Um, Prioritizing your job search is one of the hardest things. You really want to Probably base it on your financial situation, how long you can afford to be unemployed to try and get that harder, higher paying position. Um, Take advantage of opportunities the first time you see them. Don't wait until the last day before the deadline. Apply as soon as you can because recruiters, headhunters, HR, hiring managers notice. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. That means that use caution, use common sense when you're looking at positions that say how you're going to make 100,000 a year working from home, doing something that anyone can do. Um, if something's too good to be true, try and follow up with phone calls. Try and figure out if you know anyone that works there. Do what you can. A little due diligence could save you a lot of headaches. Phone calls are important, especially now that we're dealing with people basically exclusively through phones or internet, email, etc. As you decide what you want to get out of this workshop, please submit questions on the chat. That would help. So MinnesotaWorks.net. It is the largest single database for jobs in Minnesota. One of the things that website does is it limits the ability of other sites to collect the information and display it. So you're not going to see the same positions on other websites unless the employer has posted them there specifically. Employers in Minnesota Works are verified by staff, by state employees, so that there is a little extra um, effort applied to verifying them. I already talked about uh, having 5 resumes on Minnesota Works, and I also talked about um, how it's free. Uh, One of the things that everyone should note is Minnesota Works has a feature where being active on the platform raises your um, uh, search relevance. So if you were active yesterday and another person with similar qualifications was active 2 weeks ago, you're going to appear ahead of them in search results when employers search for candidates. That means if you log in every day, you keep your profile at the top. All right. Let's take a look here. Pam, do we have any questions about Minnesota Works?
The only thing I have right now is a comment that maybe you could address. Is Minnesota Works rarely has professional positions listed?
Yes, Minnesota Works has, I believe last time I checked, 90,000 positions posted, and that was this morning. Um, that means that there are a lot of jobs available, and they are positions posted by major companies. Employers like free, so they are using the state-run website that is free for them. Um, it's just like any other website where people have to actively post and take down jobs, and so there is going to be some um, positions that were filled and still posted, but for the most part, there is a lot of positions available. And they run all the experience and qualifications and industries. You can find nursing positions, you can find um, labor positions, you can find union positions, non-union. They're all available on MinnesotaWorks.net.
A
All
couple
right,
more just came in there, Sean.
sure.
Why doesn't the site show salaries?
That's that is entirely on the employer. So a lot of websites have a expected salary or something that they will substitute for what a employer puts on their job postings. Um, there's a spot on the forms that employers fill out on Minnesota Works that says the salary, and a lot of them are actually putting the salary in the body to make their posting situation a little easier for the people posting the position. So sometimes if you didn't see the salary right away, if you read the job description, you'll find it inside the paragraph format job description, but it's usually the employer not wanting to post it if it's not posted. Another one?
Um, yes. Does Minnesota Works send out job openings, or do we have to surf the site for the openings?
You have to actively interact with the platform. That means you have to log in and do a search. There is uh, things that you can do to um, ease that process, make it so that there are positions that you see on a regular basis. You can also seek help from your local career force. They can talk to you about specific things that you can do on Minnesota Works or things that they can help you with that you might not have access to in general. Um, but that's definitely something to investigate with your local career force. So um, when we're talking about uh, the things that we're dealing with today, the webinars that are offered, uh, this goes to the whole state, the whole world because it's on the internet. But your local career force has access to people that could help you, that could do one-on-one, that could interact with you, and really, based on the comments we've seen, really help you a lot. So reach out to them after the webinar. All right.
And can we do one more?
Sure.
Can the employer get my info from minnesotaworks.net?
Employers that have been verified can see contact information if you have it viewable.
And then how about posting 5 resumes on Minnesota Works? Why would we do 5?
Well, there's a lot of reasons to do 5. The simplest example would be because um, you've worked for one company and they have a job title, and you notice that the same job at 5 different companies, it's called 5 different things. So you're actually posting for the same job 5 different ways. You can broaden that to include, one employer is really focused on being part of a team and being productive as part of a team and being able to communicate through multiple different forms of communication. And another one is more focused on the individual working on projects and being able to be accountable and not need to be supervised. So you can take all the different aspects of um, how you work to do the same job and post them as separate resumes. That was just a simple example. Again, working with CareerForce staff could certainly help understand why you might want to do uh, different resumes, multiple different resumes. The other good example would be because you're you're at an entry level position and you've been doing it for a while, you want to move up, but you still have the option of seeing positions come in for the entry level. So you can create a resume focused as what you have been doing and one that's reaching for what you'd like to move into. And the last one would be multiple different jobs because you've done so many things in your career. You could post a job as a project manager or a resume as a project manager, a resume as a laborer, a resume as an office assistant, whatever you want to post. You're certainly welcome to um, do it as suits you. So, one of the things that we see as uh, career force staff, as people helping job seekers, is people that think that they're doing job search really well because they've applied for 100 jobs last week, and frankly, that is not the best way to go about the job search. Um, we want you to focus on quality over quantity. We want you to invest in understanding the mission and the um, vision and what a company does and really want to be a part of what they do. Uh, So that would mean taking your time to review the website, to network with people, to do informational interviews, to do things that allow you to appear more invested in that company, more interested in them, and that can make a difference in your job search. And it does take time. I mean, you're not going to be able to apply for 40 jobs a week if you're spending 5 hours researching and modifying your resume and doing networking and interviews with different people at different companies. Excuse me. So, if you invest your time in networking, you will get better results. It may not be next week or next month, but people who do networking and do it often are finding positions that pay better, that are more likely to keep their interest to be a better fit for them. I think I was muted. Am I still muted, Pam? Okay, thank you. So, balance your time is really important. You don't want to spend all your time staring at job descriptions and submitting resumes. Investing your time in relationships with people can yield the results you're looking for. An example of that is someone needs a job. They have a level one contact, your cousin Mary. Mary's friend Tom is connected to Mary, and then Mary's friend Tom's former boss, Pam, and then the fourth connection is Pam's friend's job is looking to hire, excuse me, Pam's friend John is looking to hire someone. So you didn't know John, but you knew someone who knew someone who knew someone who eventually reached the goal of finding someone that was looking for a, someone to fill a position. So it's not necessary to connect to the CEO of a company or the HR manager or the hiring manager of whatever industry or department that you work for. What matters is that you're connecting with people that care about your success. So this comes to connecting with everyone that wants to connect with you or everyone that reaches out to you, whether they live in Hong Kong or Mexico or, Canada. Those people might not be finding making the most of the connections that you're trying to make. If you connect with people that you used to work with, people that worked for companies that you interacted with, people that you met at the coffee shop nearby, um, those connections are more likely to pay dividends than people around the world that have never had a professional or personal relationship with you. So our suggestion is to connect with people that you have a real life working professional or personal relationship with. And some people may tell you not to reach out to personal connections like family and friends. I definitely recommend it. There's no reason not to unless you have a reason not to, then that's, for that individual situation. But for the most part, the people that know us best and are closest to us should be helping grow our network. So this is a point where I ask another question for everyone. Um, if you could type in the chat box, how many people do you think you know on a first name basis? And then I will tell you what the average is. Okay, we can get a few more responses. All right, somebody answered correctly. They might have taken the class before. All right, so the answer is the average person knows 300 people on a first name basis. You might not be able to think of even 25 off the top of your head, but if you think about every place that you've worked, the different classes you've taken in school, there is a lot of people that you know on a first name basis. Uh, but those relationships do change over time. You might have to remind people how they know you if you're trying to improve or increase your network. Um, so we'll move on to the next slide. Pam, just let me know if you got questions coming in. So when we talk about your network, who's in your network? Friends, family, colleagues, acquaintances, business contacts, referrals from contacts, networking groups, job clubs, professional organizations, civic groups, religious groups, everyone that you connect with that has meaning in your life, and the people that are at the places you frequent could be connections. Your network is probably an order of magnitude bigger than you think it is. You just have to try and get there. Um, I can tell you that numbers, when we talk about LinkedIn connections, people ask me how many connections that they should have. And the reality is, you just need the one right connection. You don't need to worry about connecting with 500 people or 5,000 people. You just need to make connections and nurture those connections and communicate with those people. Again, I do like to say that if a barista at Starbucks is doing their job to the best of their ability, he or she should be making connections. I mean, if you serve the same people coffee for years, the ones that can afford to have Starbucks frequently are the ones that are in a position to hire or employ people. And so for you, being connected to the barista would be a good opportunity to connect with their entire um, network. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about who to connect with or who not to. Um, the front desk person, the barista, the cashier, don't underestimate them. All right. Do we have any questions, Pam?
I got a couple for you. One person asked, how do we network in isolation and if our industry is still shut down for the most part? That doesn't make it easy.
It's certainly not as easy. Um, we do a lot of our communication non-verbally, but with technology and with the webinars and opportunities to connect with people on different platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, um, there are opportunities there. I know it's not in a lot of people's comfort zone to be on a webcam or on the phone with someone they don't know that well, but it's time to work on that skill. Um, with the pandemic, you need to adjust and do the best you can, and it does get easier. Um, Talking to a webcam without seeing the faces in class is a lot harder than it was being in front of 15 or 20 people in a workshop in person because I'm not able to see your faces and tell um, the different subtle hints that you give me for what direction to go. The same thing happens when you're trying to network. You can reach out to these groups and connections and people that you know, and for the most part, you're fortunate that you live in Minnesota, and we often feel obligated to help people in need. So just keep that in your back pocket that a lot of people do want to help.
And one more question, is LinkedIn a good way to network?
Absolutely. It is a good way to network. It is also a good way to lose several hours of your time. You can get wrapped up in all the different tools and resources and information and number of people and all the different things. So using your time wisely is really important when we're talking about interacting on the internet. Um, we would like to, even though, we're in a pandemic and we're dealing with this situation, we would like you to keep it to about half your time spent online. So that means use the phone, use whatever means you can to step away from the computer and network um, without sitting in front of a computer. You can think of some inventive ways. One thing that might be very interesting for some of you is the novelty of writing a handwritten letter and dropping it in the mail. That can be something that really catches someone's attention and makes you stand out in a crowd. Just one example. All right. Um, we're at the halfway point. Let's move on to the next slide. So when we talk about employers, making contact with employers, LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool for this, being able to see, look for an employer and see the people that work at that employer gives you a lot of potential. However, I want to stress that you don't want to necessarily just cold call people and try and convince them to help you. Ideally, you would be looking for a connection that you already have that knows someone at the company you're targeting. Um, you can make phone contact with the company to find out, who's at the front desk or who's the department head or something, some useful information, maybe a hiring event they're attending or something else. But making the connection to that hiring manager coming from someone who works there, trying to introduce you would mean a lot more to them in most cases. So if you know so and so that can introduce you to someone who could introduce you to the hiring manager, that's the ideal situation we're going for. As another extension of that, having them hand off your resume and give you a informational interview opportunity. Those sorts of things can be really beneficial. Um, if you don't know what an informational interview is, I'll briefly cover that. So informational interview is where you as a job seeker ask to interview someone in a position at a company to find out more about what it's like working there or what it's like to work for this person. Um, you know, is the goals and aspirations of the company in line with what you're looking for? It helps you make an educated decision on, do you really want to work there? Um, you can use it as an opportunity to decide if this person is someone you really are comfortable spending the next 10 years working for, or however long you perceive you would do that. One hint that I can give you for informational interviews is if you're doing informational interviews to the best of your ability, you're not going to end the informational interview until you have your next step, the next person that you can talk to have an informational interview with, or make some other connection so that you can continue towards your goal. And informational interviews usually should be about 20 minutes. You should tell them that up front, and you should be giving them a outline of the questions before you actually meet. You don't want to, your goal isn't to get them off guard and put them on the spot. Your goal is to get good answers, useful, um, well thought out answers to the questions that you have. And of course, it always is important to stay positive and have a good attitude. Even if you're not the most positive person in the world, that's another skill you'll want to work on because employers want to hire positive people. Telephone communication. um, One of my notes says something about not using cell phones when calling employers. I think that's an out of date comment. Most people only have cell phones these days, it seems. Let's see. Again, research and prepare talking points. You have to have an agenda and move towards a goal and commit to an amount of time. Most people that refuse to do informational interviews or have conversations with job seekers um, before they work there or before they meet in a professional setting from like a job fair or something, it's because they've been burned by how long it takes to talk to people when there isn't those professional limits set. Um, when you're talking on the phone, your personal demeanor comes across over the phone. So if you are well dressed, well prepared, it comes through. If you smile, it comes through the phone. I guarantee you, the majority of you can sense it when the person you're talking to is smiling or not. Um, Stay organized, stay on topic, and try and respect their time, and you should get pretty good results. And it gets better and easier the more often you do it. I have to reiterate that because most people see it as a barrier, and it's more of a hill. It's not a barrier. It's just a little bit hard when you start out, a little difficult to move towards your goal, and it just keeps getting easier. You get to the top of the hill, it plateaus, and you might have a downhill slope where it gets really easy. People are excited to talk to you, and then it might become a little steep again. But stay with it. It certainly does help. Um, I think we are moving on to social media. Just let me know if there's anything you need to add or questions, Pam. Um,
Actually,
social,
I do
go
have a
ahead.
question. Sorry. Is there a sample of questions for interview information?
Actually, I will show you that shortly.
Okay.
So, social media. LinkedIn, when we talk about social media, LinkedIn is really the only international website that is recognized as professional social media. If you're looking for work, you want your LinkedIn update updated with the information that you want it to have and as current and professional as you can. The fact is, though, that employers are going to look at those other non-professional ones and make sure you're a good fit with the employer. So you'll also want to clean up your Facebook, your Twitter, any blogs you have. Um, a simple example is, if your uh, you know, friends or family had a party and there was keg and red Solo cups and you've got this like college party looking pictures on your Facebook, you might want to take those down when you're in your job search. Um, as far as LinkedIn goes, if you don't have LinkedIn, you really want to work on that. That should be one of your goals this week. Get a LinkedIn account set up and get some at least basic information in there because employers are going to look for you no matter what. You want to make sure that they find you and not someone else with a similar name. All right. I'm pretty sure it's more like 95% of employers now actually try to find information online. Some specifically don't, some follow some other guidelines, but for the most part, LinkedIn is um, going to be the main tool for employers to verify your information, where you've worked, and that you're a real person. Let's see. Any questions, Pam?
I have two. Are there groups where people can practice telephone communications or video interviews?
I would reach out to your local career force and possibly set up a one-on-one for like a mock interview. Um, I don't know about telephone stuff or video. Um, some staff may be more comfortable than others, but for the most part, it's very similar. The only difference is uh, you're more prepared when you're on video, so you need to be properly dressed and groomed and present yourself the best you can. Um, there is an option on LinkedIn that we'll get to that can help with that, so we'll cover that shortly. LinkedIn Help, you're able to search for any number of topics. They have a lot of things on LinkedIn. There are a lot of different areas to LinkedIn. Um, before I get too deep into it, I will say that um, LinkedIn Premium for most people is not worth it. The majority of people out there, $30 a month is a lot of money. And for what it offers, I like to see people reach, work on their profile on the free version and accomplish things and reach a certain milestone before uh, pursuing LinkedIn Premium. Um, we can certainly set up a one-on-one for LinkedIn if you'd like to talk about your situation or have me look at your profile. We can set that up. Uh, that is an option coming from these follow-up notes when you see those. So we'll move on to the next slide. So making connections, the easiest way to make a connection is to simply search for a person or an employer or a group. Um, so let's search for an employer. You search for them, you go to their page. So if we go to the page, it's going to look like this, and one of the options is to follow the employer. You're going to have the option to follow people, but most of the time when you're searching for people, you're going to be trying to make a connection. So you search for them and then you go to their page and you would see the option to connect. One thing to note when we talk about um, connections is that I don't want you to connect from the list of potential connections. So I'll cover that a little bit deeper on the next page. But talking about uh, employers, you can see on this example that there are 20 people from your school were hired here. 59 employees are on LinkedIn. If you search for like Target or 3M or something, you're going to see tens of thousands of employees are on LinkedIn, or hundreds of thousands for some employers. Um, the option that you see here with the um, people from your school, you can actually click that and see who you know that's been hired here. Um, it's not necessarily going to be worded this way. This is an example, and it's a little out of date, but for LinkedIn, it's going to say that you know 50 people here, or 13 people here, or whatever the number is. And however you know them, you will have their name and you'll be able to go to their profile and um, express interest. So if you're connected with someone and you're following the guidelines that I suggested, where you're connecting with people that you know, people that are interested in your success, you're going to be able to go to their page, send them a message, say, hey, I'm really interested in working at Saturn Systems Software Engineering. I see you've been working there for whatever length of time it is. What can you tell me about it? You just ask for more information, you get a conversation going, and then you ask how to pursue an opportunity there, or do they know the hiring manager for whatever position brought you to uh, this page. Um, so now let's talk about some of the issues with the way we connect with people. If you click the connect button on this page, these ones going down this list of search results, or the 59 people that work at Saturn Systems, if you click connect, it's going to just send them a connection request. I want you to actually click on their name or click on their um, profile picture and go to their page and click connect, because from that page you're able to add a note, and then you can say, hey, we went to school together, or we used to work at 3M or Target, or whatever the situation is. Remind them how you know them and express interest um, in connecting with them. Don't ask them for something right away. Uh, make the connection first. That's the golden rule on LinkedIn. You don't ask people for something before you're connected to them. When you connect to them, you're not asking for them on um, in that initial conversation. Uh, if you're already, sorry, if you're already connected to them, you might see the option to message them um, instead, but that's up to you. So you can search for employers, you can search for people. So if you search for the name of your most recent boss, they should come up in the search results because you both worked at the same place. Uh, Connect with them that way. If you currently are employed, then it should be real easy to connect with the people you work with. They should know exactly who you are and why you want to connect. Um, Basically, if there's any question about why you want to connect, absolutely have to send a note. All right. So now we're going to talk about that. Actually, before we jump into the interview prep feature, are there any questions, Pam?
Actually, we do have a couple. You may not have gotten to it quite yet, but does it hurt you not having Facebook or any other social media platform?
All right. So that question is is going to vary by the employer, but for the most part, yes, it's going to be a negative impact on you. And I know people don't like to hear this, but it's the truth. People, the expectation is that we live in 2020, 2021. Um, People are on these platforms. People have been alive long enough to be on these platforms for a long period of time. Uh, it either shows your technology fear, or it shows your privacy concerns, or it creates some question about whether you are who you say you are. You want to be on whatever platforms you can be on. Facebook is good for family, friends, education, and LinkedIn is ideal for the professional network. I would say those two are the minimum for most people. Twitter and the other ones are optional.
Right.
Another
And then,
question?
yep. Do you need to post a photo of yourself on LinkedIn if you're not comfortable doing so?
So here is the simplest way to put that in perspective. It is 17 times more likely that your profile will be selected by a recruiter if it has a photo. And those numbers far outweigh any negative possibility from your photos. So you have concerns about your age, or some other thing is the most reason, or most common reason for not wanting to put your profile picture on there. But the the statistics suggest that you are far better off having your picture a recent, current, as close to professional picture as you can is ideal, and you're going to get better results than not having a picture on there at all. So that's the situation. It's not really something to debate. I'm telling you the information. You still do what you're comfortable with, but I suggest that you post a picture. All right.
And then how should you list the LinkedIn profile headline? Would you put former plus your job title, or would you just put the job title?
No. So basically, your headline should do two things. It should tell the person reading it exactly the job that you're looking for. So if I was looking for a job today, it might say project manager. Let's just use a simple example. Um, and then it should do number two, tell the person reading that you can start immediately. So you can use any kind of clever way of doing this. Basically, project manager in transition is one of those common cliched ones. Project manager exploring options, project manager interested in new opportunities. Some way of saying that I'm available right away. I'm trying to find a job without saying, hey, I'm unemployed. Okay. All
And then
right.
I just have one comment. We did have somebody remind me that we do have an interviewing skills workshop tomorrow, and that is tomorrow from 1 to 2:30 if anybody's interested in practicing on their interviewing skills or watching that workshop.
Okay. All right. All right. We will move on to the interview prep feature. So, excuse me. Uh, you sign into your LinkedIn account and then you click on jobs. And one of the options after you click on more is going to be interview prep. So this feature is new for a lot of people. It's not one of the most explored areas, but I have been presenting it for several months now. Um, Basically, this feature is going to give you the 26 common questions for interviews, and it's going to let you submit um, a written response or record a video. So this covers kind of multiple questions that were brought up about practicing video interview, practicing this sort of thing. So LinkedIn's able to do this. CareerForce staff are able to help with this sort of thing. But the biggest challenge we have when we're getting ready for an interview or in an interview is the unknown. It's not that we're incapable of answering questions. It's the idea that we don't know what the questions are. We have no way to prepare. We can't think of it on the spot. We panic. This just having those common questions and reviewing them in advance is a big step towards being successful in an interview. Um, there's another feature. You're actually able to send your recorded response to a connection and have them review it. Um, that is a great option for um, if you have a former boss or someone in HR or someone that you would appreciate their perspective. Um, so this is a feature. It has AI built in. It can give you some feedback on the response. Um, it can help you to prepare for an interview. So if you're in a pinch where you know, this evening you find out that someone wants to interview you tomorrow, you don't really have time to interact with CareerForce staff, this would be an opportunity for you to get some practice with the AI. Let's see. Record a video, choose to receive artificial intelligence feedback. There you go. Um, So the last one is going to be about the requesting feedback. So you can search for a connection or go to your connections or the recommended connections. So we actually have several minutes left to answer questions. How are you guys doing? Do you have questions for me? Um, this is your chance to ask them now. Got some for me, Pam?
Yes, I do. Just let me get to that screen again real quick. Um, what about posting resumes on LinkedIn? Is that a pro or a con?
That is definitely a con. You don't want to post um, information that is only relevant to the specific company that that employer was catered to, um, you're not going to get any better results than where you post your resume and you get those random, you know, you worked in a warehouse once 20 years ago or 15 years ago, and that's the only thing you get connections for or resume hits for. Um, it's a lot better to control what's on your resume and how it relates to the employer that's viewing it. So if you're just posting the resume on your profile and anyone can view it, then it's going to put you in a position where it might not have conveyed what you really wanted it to convey, given the opportunity to adjust it for a particular employer. Um, in my opinion, it is far better to um, leave it off your profile and uh, work on the connections and find out that they're interested in you with your experience and what you do already have on LinkedIn, and then modify your resume to really appeal to a specific job or opportunity. All right.
How about, is it okay to connect to people you don't know?
That's going to be a question for you. So my advice is I have been burned frequently. I try to stay active on LinkedIn. I teach this workshop. I get a lot of connection requests from these videos. And, if you want to connect with me, that's great. But I do want you to say that, hey, I attended your webinar and I'd like to connect. That's awesome. But I still get those random ones from around the world where, some recruiter across the country in New York wants to connect with me, and then I'm just getting inundated with like spam and requests for to sell me something, or it's just hasn't worked out for me. So my personal experience is I want to connect with people that I know, people that I can help, or people that can help me.
Okay. Next one is, did LinkedIn change? This person had an old LinkedIn and didn't update it. And when they recently went in, all of their stuff was gone that they had started.
So that's a common case of um, a different problem. So what happens is, in my experience, people have multiple accounts and they're thinking of an older or a different account with a different email. And so they have multiple LinkedIn profiles, and that's the issue that you're experiencing. There is changes that happen all the time with LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 500 million active users. They don't roll out changes to like the interface or the information, location and stuff without rolling it out to smaller population first. But for the most part, they're not going to remove any of your information or details that you've entered. So that's probably a situation where you might have a different LinkedIn account you were thinking of.
Okay. Is there a class or a book to instruct us on what to write in our LinkedIn profile?
That's something I can speak briefly on that. I will try and do my 1 minute take on that. So your LinkedIn profile is first and foremost a networking tool. That means that it is not a bullet point list of everything you've ever done. It needs to come across as a um, conversational tone that you're having, as if you were telling an old friend what you do or what you did at that employer or what you've done for the past 10 or 15 years. On that note, I don't think you need to go back more than about 10 or 15 years. Basically, uh, you decide what's relevant to your LinkedIn profile. Even though LinkedIn wants you to list everything you've done since you were born, I don't think that's in your best interest. Um, Making a good profile is going to talk about your goals and why you do what you do. It's going to be from the perspective of conversation and communicating with people rather than just meeting some bullet point expectation. I know that's kind of vague. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can connect and see if I can do a little more one-on-one as well.
Okay, and then let's see. Is LinkedIn a good website for seniors looking for employment? Will it be hard to navigate for a person with a lot of computer skills?
So they have a job section. They have lots of advanced options for searches. I don't think it's any more difficult than any other job search website. I think it's extremely important. So if you're only going to do one, LinkedIn should be it. I think it's the best one that you could use for job search as far as how successful people are and how employers expect you to have a LinkedIn profile. Even if you're a senior looking for part-time work, they're still going to want to see you on there. And I can tell you from my personal experience with seniors on the platform, they seem to use it a lot. I see a lot of retired people and a lot of people that use it as a communication and interaction on a regular basis, even if they're not looking for work.
Okay, and then we have time for one more.
Yep, one more.
What information is best to highlight on LinkedIn to an interested prospective employer without overwhelming or limiting someone?
That's going to be where you take a look. The simplest way would be to look at multiple positions that you're trying to get. So if you're looking to be a project manager, then look at what a project manager is expected to do at 3M, Target, Walmart, McDonald's, wherever, whatever industry you're targeting, and look at what's consistent across the job descriptions and take those things and highlight those. It's the same thing that should be highlighted on your generic resume that you have posted on Minnesota Works or any of the other job search, job banks, etc. So target based on what you're looking for, and if what you're looking for changes, change it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now 11 a.m. Thank you all for attending this webinar.